You think you know the scams. The dirty air filter, the "your brakes are shot" routine. But those are beginner tricks. Today, I'm showing you the advanced playbook. 11 scams that use real science and real diagnostic tools to make you thank them for taking your money. And stay until scam number 11. It's the most common way mechanics charge you for work that's literally impossible to do on your car. Let's go. Scam 1. The lifetime fluid trap. You're shopping for a new car. The salesman smiles and says, "And the best part? The transmission fluid is lifetime. You'll never have to touch it." Sounds amazing, right? One less thing to worry about, one less maintenance cost. Except it's not true. Here's what lifetime actually means in the automotive world. It doesn't mean the lifetime of the car, it means the lifetime of the warranty, which for most manufacturers ends at 60,000 to 100,000 miles. After that, you're on your own. And here's where the scam kicks in. Dishonest mechanics know this. They see your car rolling in with 120,000 miles and original transmission fluid that's been cooking inside that gearbox for over a decade. They see the fluid turning dark brown, losing viscosity, breaking down, and they say nothing. Why? Because if they told you to change it, that's a $200 service. But if they stay quiet and let that transmission fail in another 20,000 miles, that's a $4,000 to $6,000 rebuild or replacement. So they play the long game. They wait, they smile, and when your transmission starts slipping or jerking, they act surprised. These transmissions are known to fail. It's gonna be expensive, but it didn't have to fail. The counter. Ignore the word lifetime. Open your owner's manual and look for the severe service schedule. Most people don't even know this exists. Under severe service, which includes stop-and-go traffic, short trips, and extreme temperatures, almost every manufacturer recommends changing transmission fluid every 60,000 miles. But here's critical. Do not get a transmission flush. A flush uses pressure and chemicals that can dislodge debris and destroy an aging transmission. What you want is called a drain and fill. Gravity only. No pressure, no machine. They drop the pan, drain the old fluid, replace the filter if there is one, and refill. It's gentler, safer, and cheaper. Your line at the shop. "I need a drain and fill on my transmission, not a flush, just drain and fill." That one sentence can save you thousands. Scam 2. The battery surface charge. You roll into the shop for an oil change. Quick, easy, 30-minute job. But then the service advisor walks out with a concerned look and a printout in his hand. "We tested your battery. It's showing weak voltage. It could fail any time. We recommend replacing it today." Now you're stuck. You don't want to get stranded. You don't want to deal with a dead battery in a parking lot somewhere. So you authorize the replacement. $180, $200, sometimes more. Here's what just happened. You got scammed by something called a surface charge. When you drive your car, the alternator charges the battery. That charge sits on the surface of the battery plates. If you test the battery immediately after driving, that surface charge can give a falsely high reading. But here's the trick dishonest shops use. They do the opposite. Before they test your battery, they turn on your headlights, your radio, your air conditioning, anything that draws power. This drains the surface charge and makes the battery look weaker than it actually is. Then they test it. And surprise, it fails. But here's the thing. If your car starts perfectly fine every single morning, your battery is not failing. A battery doesn't fail gradually in a way that still lets you start your car flawlessly. Batteries fail suddenly. One day they work, the next day they're dead. The counter. When they tell you your battery failed, ask them this. Did you perform a proper load test after removing the surface charge? A real load test applies a load, simulating the demand of starting the engine, and measures how the battery performs under stress. The key number you're looking for is called CCA, cold cranking amps. Every battery has a CCA rating stamped on the label. If your battery is rated for 600 CCA, and the load test shows it's still delivering 550 or more, your battery is fine. If it's down to 400, okay, time to replace it. But if they can't show you a printed load test result with actual CCA numbers, they didn't test it properly. Your line. Can I see the load test printout with the CCA reading? Because my car starts perfectly every day. Scam 3. The color-based brake flush. The technician walks up holding a small plastic vial. Inside is a liquid that looks like old coffee, dark, murky, maybe even a little brown. He says, "This is your brake fluid. See how dark it is? It's contaminated. If you don't flush it, your brakes could fail." And then he shows you a comparison. Next to the dirty sample, he holds up a bottle of new brake fluid, bright, clear, golden yellow. The contrast is shocking. So you authorize the flush. $150, $180, sometimes $200. Here's the truth they don't tell you. Brake fluid naturally darkens over time. It's not dirt. It's not contamination. It's a chemical reaction caused by heat cycles and exposure to the rubber hoses in your brake system. The fluid absorbs tiny amounts of dye and rubber compounds, which change its color from clear yellow to amber to brown. But here's the critical part. Color has nothing to do with brake fluid performance. A dark brake fluid can still work perfectly. The real enemy of brake fluid is not darkness, it's water. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture from the air over time. And when water gets into your brake fluid, two bad things happen. First, water lowers the boiling point of the fluid, which can cause brake fade under hard braking. Second, water causes internal corrosion in your brake lines, calipers, and master cylinder. That's the real danger, not the color. So how do you know if your brake fluid has actually failed? There's a tool for that. It's called a brake fluid moisture test pen. It costs about $15 online, and honest shops already have one. You dip it into the brake fluid reservoir, and it measures the percentage of water content. If the water content is under 3%, your brake fluid is perfectly fine, even if it looks like chocolate milk. If it's over 3%, okay, time to flush it. The counter. When they show you dark brake fluid and start talking about contamination, say this: "Can you test the moisture content with a test pen? Because I know color alone doesn't indicate failure." If they refuse or say they don't have the tool, they're not diagnosing, they're selling. Scam 4. The GDI induction bait. You're at the dealership for routine maintenance. The service advisor comes back with an inspection report, and there's a new line item on the estimate. Fuel induction service, $199. He says, "Your engine has carbon buildup on the intake valves. This service uses a special cleaning solution to dissolve the deposits and restore performance." Sounds technical, sounds important. But here's the scam. For about 70% of cars on the road, this service is completely worthless. Let me explain why. There are two types of fuel injection systems. Port injection, the old school system where fuel is sprayed before the intake valves. Direct injection, GDI, the newer system where fuel is sprayed directly into the combustion chamber after the valves. Here's the difference that matters. In a port injection engine, gasoline constantly washes over the intake valves. That gasoline contains detergents that naturally clean the valves as the engine runs. Carbon buildup? Not really a problem. But in a GDI engine, fuel never touches the intake valves. So over time, oil vapor from the crankcase ventilation system can bake onto the valves, forming hard carbon deposits. And that's when a fuel induction service actually makes sense. But here's the scam. Shops recommend this service to everyone, whether they have a GDI engine or not, because most customers have no idea what kind of fuel system their car has. The counter. Pop your hood. Look at the plastic engine cover. If you see the words GDI, TFSI, TSI, EcoBoost, or Turbo, you have direct injection. In that case, a fuel induction service every 60,000 to 80,000 miles can actually help. But if you don't see those badges, you almost certainly have port injection, and that means this service is a waste of money. Your line at the shop. Does my car have direct injection or port injection? Because I'm only paying for this if it's a GDI engine. Bonus tip. Even if you do have a GDI engine, you can buy a can of CRC intake valve cleaner for about $12 at any auto parts store and do it yourself in 15 minutes. Scam 5. The camber kit upsell. You bring your car in for an alignment. Maybe you hit a pothole. Maybe your steering wheel is slightly off-center. You're expecting a simple adjustment. In, out, $100, done. But then the service advisor comes back and says, "We tried to align your car, but your camber is out of spec. Unfortunately, your vehicle doesn't have a factory adjustment for camber. We'll need to install an aftermarket camber kit to fix it." The price? $200 to $350. Now you're confused. You thought alignments were supposed to be simple, but this sounds like major surgery. Here's the truth. On most modern cars, camber, the angle of the wheel when viewed from the front, is not adjustable. It's fixed by the design of the suspension. The only things you can typically adjust are toe, the angle when viewed from above, and sometimes caster, the angle of the steering axis. So if your camber is out of spec, it doesn't mean you need a kit. It means something is broken, bent, or worn out. Common causes: a bent control arm from hitting a curb or pothole, worn ball joints or bushings, a sagging spring, a damaged subframe. A camber kit is just an adjustable bolt or slotted bracket that gives the technician a way to tweak the camber angle. And yes, in some cases, like on modified cars or lowered vehicles, a camber kit is a legitimate solution. But on a stock, unmodified daily driver, a camber kit is usually a band-aid covering up a real problem. The counter. When they tell you that you need a camber kit, ask them this. If the camber is out of spec, what part is bent or worn? Make them identify the actual failure. If it's a bent control arm, replace the control arm. If it's a worn bushing, replace the bushing. But don't pay for a kit that just hides the problem without fixing the root cause. Your line. I don't want a camber kit. I want to know what part failed. Let's fix that. Scam 6. The misting shock absorber. You bring your car in for an oil change or tire rotation. During the courtesy inspection, the technician crawls under your car with a flashlight. A few minutes later, he walks out and says, "I found a problem. Your shocks are leaking. You need to replace them, and we recommend doing them in pairs for safety." Then he shows you a photo on his phone. There's a light sheen of oil on the shock absorber body. Looks bad, right? Here's what they don't tell you. Shock absorbers are hydraulic devices filled with oil. Inside the shock, there's a piston that moves up and down through that oil to dampen the motion of your suspension. And at the top of the shock, there's a seal that keeps the oil inside. But here's the thing. That seal is not designed to be 100% dry. In fact, shock absorbers are designed to release a microscopic amount of oil to lubricate the seal and keep it from drying out and cracking. This is called misting, and it's completely normal. A misting shock will have a very thin, almost dusty film of oil on the shock body. It's barely visible unless you're looking for it. But a leaking shock is a different story. A leaking shock will have oil actively dripping down the side. It'll be wet. It might even have dirt or road grime stuck to it because of the oil. That's when you actually need to replace it. But here's the scam. Dishonest techs will point to a misting shock, one that's working perfectly fine, and call it a leak. The counter. When they show you a leaking shock, ask them this. Is it misting or is it leaking? Can you show me wet oil dripping down, or is it just a thin film? Make them explain the difference. Better yet, ask to see it yourself. Get under the car, touch the shock with your finger. If it's dry or just slightly tacky, it's misting. If your finger comes away wet and oily, it's leaking. A misting shock can last for years, sometimes the entire life of the vehicle. A leaking shock needs to be replaced. Don't pay for new shocks just because there's a faint oil sheen. Scam 7. The ghost tire rotation. This one is so simple, it's almost insulting. You go in for an oil change, and the shop offers a free tire rotation with the service. Great deal, right? You agree. 30 minutes later, they bring your car back. You pay the bill, drive home, and think nothing of it. But here's what actually happened. Nothing. In busy shops, especially chain stores and quick lube places, tire rotations are considered gravy work, extra labor that doesn't pay much and slows down the main job. So when the shop is slammed and the tech is being pressured to move cars faster, they skip it. They leave your tires exactly where they are, wipe the oil off their hands, and mark the service as complete on the work order. You paid for it, or in this case, it was included, but it never happened. And you'd never know unless you checked. Here's the counter, and it's almost hilariously simple. Before you take your car in, grab a piece of chalk or a Sharpie. Go to your front left tire. On the inside of the tire, the side facing the engine, make a small mark. Could be an X, could be your initials, doesn't matter. Just make sure you know exactly where that mark is. Now drop your car off for service. When you pick it up, walk around and check the tires. If they actually rotated your tires, that mark should now be on a different wheel, most commonly the rear right or rear left, depending on the rotation pattern. But if that mark is still on the front left tire, congratulations, you just caught them red-handed. At that point, don't argue, don't make a scene. Just know that this shop cuts corners. And if they'll skip something as simple as a tire rotation, what else are they skipping that you can't see? Take your business elsewhere. Scam 8. The EPDM belt crack myth. The mechanic lifts the hood of your car and points to the serpentine belt, that long ribbed belt that winds around multiple pulleys. He says, "See these cracks? This belt is about to snap. If it breaks while you're driving, you'll lose power steering, your battery won't charge, and your engine could overheat. We need to replace this today." He's holding the belt up to the light, and sure enough, you can see tiny cracks running across the surface. Looks bad, right? Here's the truth. Modern serpentine belts are made from a material called EPDM, ethylene propylene diene monomer. It's a synthetic rubber that's far more durable than the old-school neoprene belts from the 1980s and 90s. And here's the key difference. Old neoprene belts did fail by cracking. When you saw cracks, that was a warning sign. The belt was drying out and getting ready to snap. But EPDM belts are designed differently. They intentionally develop small surface cracks as they age. Those cracks are called weather checking, and they're completely normal. They don't affect the belt's strength or performance. EPDM belts don't fail by snapping. They fail when the grooves on the inside of the belt, the ribs that grip the pulleys, wear down and become too shallow. When that happens, the belt starts to slip, squeal, or lose grip. That's when it needs to be replaced. But you can't judge that by looking at surface cracks. You need to measure the depth of the ribs. And there's a tool for that. It's called a belt wear gauge. It's a small plastic tool that costs about $10, and it measures whether the ribs are still deep enough to grip properly. If the ribs pass the gauge test, the belt is fine, even if it has 100 tiny cracks. The counter. When they show you cracks and recommend a new belt, ask them this: is this belt made of EPDM or neoprene? And did you use a belt wear gauge to measure the rib depth? If they say, "We don't need a gauge, we can just see it's cracked," they're using outdated information. Your line. I know EPDM belts develop surface cracks. Can you show me the wear gauge reading? That one question separates the professionals from the con artists. Scam 9. The AC top-off. It's the middle of summer. You turn on your air conditioning expecting ice-cold air, but instead you get lukewarm, or nothing at all. You take your car to the shop, and the mechanic says, "Your AC is low on refrigerant. We'll top it off for you. Should take about 20 minutes. $120. Sounds reasonable, right? Quick fix, easy solution. Except it's not a solution at all. It's a Band-Aid. And in a few months, you'll be right back where you started. Here's the truth about air conditioning systems. Your AC is a closed system. That means refrigerant doesn't evaporate or get used up over time. It's not like gasoline that burns in your engine. Refrigerant circulates in a loop, compressor, condenser, evaporator, back to the compressor, over and over again. If your system is low on refrigerant, there is only one possible explanation. You have a leak. Somewhere in that closed system, a hose, a seal, a fitting, the condenser, refrigerant is escaping. And here's the scam. Shops know this, but they also know that finding and fixing a leak is time-consuming and expensive. It might be a $400 or $500 repair. So instead of telling you the truth, they offer you a top-off. They add refrigerant, charge you $100 or $120, and send you on your way. For a few weeks, your AC blows cold again. You think the problem is solved. But then the cold air starts to fade. The leak is still there. And now you're back at the shop, paying for another top-off. This cycle can go on for years. The counter. When they tell you that you need a recharge, say this: I don't want a recharge, I want a leak test with UV dye. Here's how it works. The technician adds a special dye to your AC system. You drive the car for a few days, then you bring it back and they use a UV light to scan all the AC components. Wherever the refrigerant is leaking, the dye will glow bright green or yellow under the UV light. Once they find the leak, they can fix it. Replace the leaking hose, seal, or component. Then they evacuate the system, recharge it properly, and you're done. One fix, no more annual recharges. Your line. If my AC is low, there's a leak. Find the leak, fix it, then recharge the system. Scam 10. The $100 PCV valve. The service advisor comes out with a technical-sounding diagnosis. We found that your PCV valve is clogged. It's causing rough idle and poor fuel economy. We recommend replacing it. The part and labor will be $85. Now, unless you're a gearhead, you probably have no idea what a PCV valve is. It sounds complicated. It sounds important. So you say yes. Here's the truth. PCV stands for positive crankcase ventilation. It's a tiny valve, usually made of plastic, that vents pressure from inside your engine's crankcase back into the intake manifold so it can be burned off. And yes, it can get clogged over time. When it does, you might notice rough idle, oil leaks, or increased oil consumption. So replacing it is a legitimate repair. But here's the scam. On most cars, the PCV valve is one of the easiest things to replace on the entire engine. It's usually located right on top of the valve cover. No special tools required, no jacks, no crawling under the car. You literally just pull the old one out and push the new one in. It takes 60 seconds. And the part itself? At an auto parts store, a PCV valve costs between $8 and $15 for most vehicles. So when a shop charges you $85 for this job, you're paying $70 plus in labor for 1 minute of work. The counter. When they tell you that you need a PCV valve, say this: Thanks for letting me know. I'll pick up the part and replace it myself. Then go to AutoZone, O'Reilly, or any parts store. Tell them your year, make, and model. They'll hand you the correct PCV valve. Go back to your car, open the hood. Look for a small valve sticking out of the valve cover, usually with a hose attached to it. Pull the old one out, push the new one in. Done. Total time, less than 2 minutes. Total cost, $10. You just saved $75. Scam 11. The solid axle alignment. This one is the finale, because it's the most common way shops charge you for work that is literally impossible to perform on your vehicle. You bring your car in for an alignment. The quote comes back: full four-wheel alignment, $129. Sounds standard, right? Except here's the problem. On a huge percentage of vehicles, especially trucks, SUVs, and economy cars, the rear axle is solid. That means the rear wheels are connected by a single non-adjustable beam. There are no bolts to loosen, no eccentric cams to turn, no way to adjust camber, caster, or toe. The rear wheels are locked in place by the design of the suspension. So when a shop says they're doing a four-wheel alignment, what they actually mean is they're adjusting the front wheels, which are adjustable. They're measuring the rear wheels to confirm they're still within spec, but they're not adjusting anything in the rear because they can't. yet they're charging you for a four-wheel alignment anyway. And here's the kicker. On vehicles where the rear is adjustable, like many modern sedans and sports cars, a true four-wheel alignment involves adjusting multiple angles on all four wheels. That takes time, but on a solid rear axle vehicle, the four-wheel part of the service takes zero extra time. It's just a measurement, so you're paying for a service that doesn't exist. The counter. When they quote you for a four-wheel alignment, ask this: is the rear camber and toe adjustable on this specific vehicle, or does it have a solid rear axle? If they say it's a solid axle, then follow up with, so you're only adjusting the front, right? Then why am I being charged for a four-wheel alignment? Watch them scramble. Some will try to justify it by saying, well, we still measure the rear. Your response? Measuring isn't the same as adjusting. I'll pay for a two-wheel alignment, since that's all you're actually doing. Most shops charge about $40 to $50 less for a front-only alignment. If they refuse to adjust the price, you just confirmed they're running a scam. Here's the bottom line. A four-wheel alignment is only a four-wheel alignment if all four wheels are actually adjustable. If your rear axle is solid, you're being charged for work that cannot be performed. And that's not a gray area. That's fraud. 11 advanced scams. 11 ways mechanics use real science and real tools to fool you. The best con artists don't lie directly. They use partial truths. Yes, brake fluid darkens, but that doesn't mean it failed. Yes, belts crack, but EPDM is designed that way. Yes, your AC needs refrigerant, but only because there's a leak. They count on you not knowing the full story, but now you do. Now you know the questions to ask, and now you're much harder to fool. If this just saved you hundreds or thousands, hit the like button and share it. Drop a comment. Tell me the weirdest thing a mechanic has ever told you. I read every one. Stay smart. I'll see you in the next one.